Buenas tardes, arratsaldeon.
Good afternoon. Today, we're presenting the film CAMILE SALDRÁ ESTA NOCHE. CAMILE comes out tonight, which has just been screened officially in the Cursal at present. And to present it, the film, which competes in the official section, we've got the director, Inés Barrionuevo. We have two of the main actresses, Nina Dziembrowski, sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly, Maite Valero, much easier. And we have three of the producers, Martín Burric, Sebastián Aloy, and Luis Bustamante. And I want to say that we also have, with the co-script writer, who's called Andrés Aloy, who's sitting in the front there. So therefore, because of COVID, we can't have more people on the panel, but he's undoubtedly, he'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I would like to start myself with a question, and especially for the director. And that is, it seemed to me that the film obviously had great acting, very powerful, but I believe the reality of that secondary school and how the youth behaves and conducts itself, which is different to the youth when I was younger. So therefore, it's a youth which is very contemporary. I wanted to know, what was the exercise like for Andrés, perhaps could answer vis-a-vis the script, to introducing yourselves, getting into that world, which is getting into the world of the youth of today and not only 15 years ago. Hi, good afternoon or good evening. Thank you for this meeting or this press conference. And this meeting, cinema goes beyond pandemics and COVID. It is far away for you. Well, if it's far away from you, that period of time, even, I don't know how old you are, but I think you're much younger than me. So imagine how far away that time is for me. Secondly, there is the youth in Argentina the last few years that has to do with women and feminism and what happened with the green tide and the militancy of observing in the protests a lot of young girls, very young girls from secondary schools that were in favor of the legalization of abortion. And my work was to observe, but my work, I'm not a documentary director. I don't know whether they identified because they are the same age as their characters of what I represent in the screen. There's also work there, which is an invention. Basically, we're making films and we imagine what these young girls are like and how at this secondary school with Andrés, who we also with the script, of details of the past and things that happened to us at school and things that we're observing and things that we built and constructed into the script, because I don't think the idea is to faithfully portray what's happening, but that machinery or the artifact of what art is, that's it, more or less. But in any case, it comes from the reality and everything that happened in the last few years in Argentina with this movement that I was talking about. Now, please, the questions now for the floor. Hi, I would like to ask the director, I'm used to seeing in these types of subject matter or themes, there's very explicit sexual violence, of which I'm very sick of seeing. There's always rape and everything is horrible. So therefore, first of all, thank you very much for the film is not traumatic and you can see it and feel like walk out quite relaxed. But there's sexual violence there, and whether you addressed at any time to be a bit more harsher and show stronger scenes, or yes, or why yes and why no? Well, it's a good question. Thank you. I'm very sick and tired of seeing these types of things on the screen, but I wanted to be a bit more crude, and I thought about it a lot, and what we thought about, well, talking to women, friends of mine, five or four of them have been victims of, have been abused, sexually abused to a greater or lesser extent. So therefore, we shouldn't talk about rape. We can talk about many things, but it seemed to me that there was to address something a bit much more subtle, with more subtlety. An act of violence is an act of violence that we've seen in films, but an act that has to do with subtlety, which is much stronger, to bring about a different way of thinking about it. they're exaggerating, or she's not. She defended her. I wanted to talk about this, and that abuse can be micro abuse, there can be macro abuse, there can be different types of abuse, and it continues to be abuse. So for the representation of abuse, like rape, as we've seen in many films in the history of cinema, we've got to show other things as well that have to do with subtleties, larger subtleties, and we come out at the end of it living, at least as women anyway. Hi. I would like to ask about the final scene. What relevance that reflection in the water? Why did you end up with that? Because it was an issue of that we were looking. We looked for it in the editing process, in the editing room, and it starts with a story that she enters into this museum, and there's a story of about a girl, a native girl that was captured by colonizers at the beginning of the film. And I liked an ending that would maintain a dialogue with the beginning of the film. And it would go directly to the character, because she doesn't stop being a teenager, and she's going to continue her life. And she looks herself in the reflection. She looks forward beyond the premature protests at school. Will continue because you're 17 years old. I don't want to stop the film as an act of No, I wanted to go back to the character, basically. I wanted to see her walking on her own. I don't know whether that answers your question. Hi. I've read that the script initially, or the project, was proposed. It wasn't yours initially. To make it your own, did you have the need of entering into the script yourself, or did you how did you get involved with the script? Well, I was given a script, which is a script about adolescence, and which dealt with the issue of bullying. And so therefore I proposed making a different type of version, my own version. The script came from, well, Andres is here, who'd been working on the script, but it had another director, and the look wasn't good because it came from another director. So therefore it finally came into my hands, and I worked on a version, and then with Andres in 2 or 3 successive versions of the script in order to finally achieve this final version. So therefore there were several stages really until the script came into my hands. Sorry, I interrupted you. No, tell me. No, you saved me. I didn't know what I was going to say. I said, no, perhaps Andres could say something as regards the script. You want to say something, Andres? I'm sorry, we didn't hear what Andres has just said. Okay. There's another question here. Hi, me again. My question is for the actresses. I would like to know how you got prepared your roles, whether you did anything specifically to improve the chemistry between you, because there's very good chemistry between both of you. I'm not too sure whether you were friends beforehand or not. We met in the casting, but it was quite natural, I think. Yes, it was very easy. From the outset, there was chemistry between both of us. Things flowed very easily. I think that they chose us because of the chemistry that we had between, more than we constructed the chemistry subsequently. Yes. Then it got further in depth over time, and with the days of sharing the scenes and shooting the film. And taking advantage of the question that I said before, do you, both of you, feel identified with the characters that say beyond at a personal level, or do you feel any reflection of the truth is the current young people or youth can be directed towards the description of these characters? I think that yes, but in turn, at present, youth also has its contradictions. I think beyond the fact that I'm the same age as the character, we all have our contradictions, and I think that we're all learning a little at the same time, learning to live. And we're learning quite a lot about these issues. I don't think that I'm not like Camila. The truth is, I do have her character, her personality at times, but yes, for me, I identify myself with a lot with the scenes that she has with her mother. I think that it's as if when I went to school, for example, or when with my group of friends, of being like that, of being talking a lot about politics and going to protests, and when I get home, to have a link with my mother, which is mother to the daughter, and a contradiction arises of perhaps of fighting with her in that sense, and in the same time, and then to love her very much and have a lot of solidarity with her. And I felt more identified perhaps at that level in that part, in the link that she has with her mother, not because of my mother, but because of the situation of sometimes at different fields you work and you operate or you act in different ways. What about you, Maite? Because your role is quite different to the social class and of the character as well. Yes, I feel quite identified with Clara. That duality, internal duality she has, at moments I feel it. It was something like it was close to try to find it. It's not what it cost me. I understood her, that's what I thought. I understood that duality that she had in her. And also, I went to a school which was a bit more traditional, and therefore I grew and I learned to see things outside, which is more or less what happens to Clara in the film. That is to say, she starts to open her mind, and in that case, I do feel identified, and I also believe what was good when you talked about youth. I felt that they always listened to us. To the young actors, we had a place to be able to give our points of view upon the different scenes, and that was very pleasant to work that way. Ines, do you want to contribute something as regards to the way you directed the actors? Because there are a lot of key elements. One of the key elements, not only vis-a-vis the two actresses, but all of the rest of the supporting actors in the group. I'm not too sure whether you have anything to add there from an acting perspective, performance side of things, as regards to how you worked with the cast. Our casting process was very powerful with Solisa Martin, who worked with her in actors and actors coaches, and there was great work, and we were very fortunate. We were managed to achieve all of the characters. I think we set up the casting. It's like the faces that we were looking for, and many of the characters, it's like a small family, and they had to fit in very well within you see these faces on the screen, and we managed to achieve it quite very well. I think that the work, we managed to achieve this in a very short amount of time, and we worked quite rigorously. It is true that with a lot of freedom for dialogue, but with quite a lot of rigor vis-a-vis the script. We didn't improvise. We worked upon the links, the girls, and the connections between the girls. We rehearsed the connections between the characters, and in the film, we respect the script as it was written. The dialogues were quite respected in that sense. Okay, another question over here. You again, and another one at the back later on. You feel very, I see that everyone's very shy today. Hi again, me. Can we talk about the little kitten? Because I'm a fan of the little kitten. Why did you decide to put in those scenes? Because it seems to me there's a bit of symbology there, more than what appears on the surface. Look, I always put animals in my films, and I couldn't miss the chance for having an animal in this film. Miss the opportunity of putting up an animal in this film. The truth is, I'm not too sure whether there's any symbology behind it, but one puts things in the film and then they read critique about the symbology of the, well, they say, oh, I got there's some symbology there. Perhaps subsequently, I like to think about the idea that it's the weights that you get rid of, the burdens that you get rid of, and you exchange them. I think those things worked well within the story. The cat is something that goes from one place and goes to another place, and when then the grandmother dies, and the neighbor is living a mourning, but she receives an animal, which is something which is very tender, and that transfer is very tender. There's a lot of tenderness there, and that symbology of losing one thing and then have another thing, this cat which goes from one place to another, who ends up being in the hands of a person who's very lonely. Hi, I would like to ask you, all of the steps forward in the film against violence against women or different problems with gender problems are young people. Didn't you address the possibility that some adult could also give them a hand? Or it's a reflection of what's happening nowadays in the youth and the difference there is between youth and adults. I don't think I understand your question, sorry. Are they the younger girls who denounce and make things obvious, but it seems that the adults are stopped or take a step back? Did you address the possibility that any adult could give them a hand? Or is it a reflection of what's happening now, or what that you live through, or what happens? I think that at the end of the day, we were interested in the world of those two. The adults were left to one side, outside that world of the two young girls. Whether it's happened, but we did talk about this youth, which is incredible, these young girls who were in that movement. But beyond that, it's a reference, but beyond that, when we say, well, okay, let's talk about this world of the young girls, and the intervention of the adults is left outside. Well, we got dived in the deep end, and we don't want to know what happens to Camila and her surrounding, and we live through her eyes of what's happening. The adults are left to one side in the story, so to speak. Yes. Could you please tell me how the film will be received in Argentina, and you think that it could cause some controversy in dealing aspects like the green tide? No, I think controversy, well, I'm not sure. What do you think, girls? Quite probably. I don't know. I think that everything generates controversy nowadays. It seems to me that I don't know if there's any controversy will arise, but the legalization of interrupting pregnancy is legal in Argentina now, but it wasn't when we shot the film. So there might be a controversy there. And the advance of the right wing is becoming a reality also in our country. But I feel that I live in a bubble. I talk about this subject matter, and I talk to these two girls, and we're like in a trench, and we say, but for this is even not tough at all. We can be much more controversial, but I don't see too much controversy in the film. But there's another reality on the side, and there's people who are homophobic and people who don't accept diversity, and there are people who go save lives and so on. So, and in that sense, I'm like in a bubble when I'm talking about themes of this nature. Or I'm sorry, we can't hear the question. Do you fear any reaction by the other audience? I'm not too sure. Whether it's an audience that I don't think about, but it does exist, yes. it does exist. That audience does exist, and it's always going to exist in that sense. And in Argentina, the right wing is advancing quite a lot in Argentina, but I think that though Ines doesn't believe it, but that she also thinks about that audience, and it has to generate something. I suppose the film has to generate something, be it controversial or love or whatever. It's got to generate some sort of impact. And I don't think that's too bad all of a sudden. And I think it's quite good that that audience can see the film. I want to take advantage to ask, as we've got three of the producers here, and as you were saying at the outset, the project was a little different and seemed to understand it had a more masculine perspective to it, and it adapted to the look of Ines, and also new times, the characters, and so on and so forth. Could you talk a bit about the process and where the film started off with and where it ended up being shot? I think it was a good process. With Ines, it was very creative working with her, but the truth is we wanted to give it a powerful feminine look, and we wanted to support them. Basically, that was it. She had a voice. That was the beginning of all of this when we got the projects and we gave it to Ines. Excuse me, the microphone, otherwise we can't hear you. Before Ines, there was a neo-Disney sort of the film, and when she came along, she gave it texture, but it was like a very distant skeleton, really, and there was a significant change at that level when she got involved in the project. I was just going to talk about that, because what drew my attention is that the three producers who are men, and the film is directed by a woman with issues and values about women which are quite powerful, and so therefore that drew my attention enormously. So therefore I would like to ask about the casting process in general. How did you choose them? Whether it took a long time or with the rest of the actors in the cast? The casting, yes. Well, I think I talked about the casting process before. We had, I know it has how you selected. Did you see a lot of girls or a lot of people? Yes, we saw a lot, and we had set everything up, and there was very little time to come to shoot the film, and we couldn't find Camila, and I had already seen Maite, and it was quite clear to me, and I had Bruno and the other characters who were supporting actors, and I didn't have, after seeing hundreds of girls, there were none that could be the leading actress, and I talked to Mariela Breviace, who works with Soledad, who's the acting director, I said, but it's quite funny because I talked about Marianne Cotillard. I said, I want a type of a girl who could be a worker from the worker class, or a James Bond woman. That was my reference. That's what I needed. Who was here in the festival. Marianne was here in the festival, and she showed me a casting. So a very blurry image, bad lighting, and it was filmed with a mobile phone of her face. And I looked at it on the screen, I said, I've got a girl that could fit it in. And I saw her face, and I said, yes, that's what I was looking for. Exactly what I was looking for. The truth is, we have to finish here. I'm not too sure whether anyone is encouraged to ask another question. You know what I'm like. Otherwise, I'll ask the question. Here we go. One of the many things that I like in the film is one of the scenes that is going to be at the festival that has to do with a sexual encounter under that plastic cover on the bed. And it's a question to the director and the two actresses. how did that scene come along? Because it's obviously, you have to be accomplices with the actresses before placing the camera there. How could you give us the ins and outs of this scene? Yes, what happened was that the grandmother had all of the furniture covered in this old house where you couldn't live in, and everything was covered up with nylon, and the mother doesn't want them to use the armchairs or the bed. That as a context, as a context element, but then it always happens to me in sex scenes. I like to see erotic scenes, but I don't like to shoot them, and I try to hide them even for me. And I hide them for me to look at them. I say, well, let's see how I can do it to not have to see so much. So I tried to find a way of putting that element in there within the film. It was good. The sound people wanted to kill me because it was quite a problem, but quite difficult. But it was very special. The girls could tell the story because the situation was very intimate. We were within a room. I think in the room there was only the girls filming the scene, and there were those two, and we repeated the sound we were filming, and they repeated the scene, because you can't repeat erotic sounds. Obviously, they had to do the same thing, and very freely. Could you tell the story? Well, I feel very comfortable with Nina, and it flew very well. It flowed very well. I said, I think it was Costi, the DOP, myself, and the two actors, and the lady, and the person who does sound. 3 people, so it was very intimate. So therefore, the atmosphere was very good, so that both of us could feel very comfortable. Mm. Yeah, the same thing. I agree. I'd already done a scene like that in the first film I worked in, but it was different to this case. I didn't have a nylon bag, a nylon plastic cover for this situation, as it happens in this film. But the truth is, with Maite, I felt very comfortable with her, and as we got along very well and we had a lot of chemistry, I felt it wasn't too difficult to adapt myself to that plastic bag cover. The nylon cover was it gave a lot of play, and it was fun to be in there at the same time. So it was a nylon cover, and it was quite difficult for the sound, obviously, to record it. Okay, and finally, final question. I was thinking that one of the things that I'm not too sure whether it impacted me too much, but rings a bell a lot, is the political neutrality there. The idea that it's not so much that we're going against anyone who thinks opposite to us, but someone that doesn't defend anything. Is this an issue? Perhaps the question is a bit too absurd, but is this the terminology that you use in the film? Is this terminology that's used in Argentina in general? And the idea of political neutrality, of not taking a position politically? Yes. Yes. It is a problem. And it's an issue that happens quite often. I think that everywhere the same thing, but over there especially. I'm not too sure whether you refer to the political position of the school. Yes, well, the fact that they don't take a position is to take a position, I believe. And I think that in this film, the school talks about not taking a position, no political ideas, but just to say that is a political act in itself. I mean, you can see what side on the political spectrum the school is at. So therefore, I don't believe too much students, for example. The position of the students is also a question, a different question. But the school, as the director, the headmaster, but the character doesn't have, Guille, the character doesn't have a name, but the fact that to say, beyond whether it can be school policy per se, it is is to talking about that there's no neutrality but at all, but I think you are positioning yourselves when you say that you're neutral and you don't want to do anything about it. Thank you very much. You've seen that the film, the logo of the festival also turned green. So with the green tide, we'll leave it here. A big round of applause for the cast and crew and the producers.